Swallow it. Swallow it now or I'll kill her. Ray Cole forced another capsule down the 7-year-old's throat. Ethan choked but swallowed all 23. 7 hours later, the boy collapsed in a school bathroom, arms wrapped around his swollen belly. Something inside him was moving. Kicking. Fighting to break free. He stole a phone from a teacher's desk, dialed 911 with trembling fingers. "Please help me. There's something alive inside my belly. It won't stop moving." Outside, a blizzard buried Pine Ridge under 3 feet of snow. No ambulance could reach him. But a German shepherd named Titan heard his cry, and the Navy SEAL who owned him was already moving. Before we continue this incredible story, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Watch this story until the very end and comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels around the world. Trust me, this one will stay with you forever. The phone rang at 7:47 in the morning. Claire Dawson reached for her headset, coffee still burning her tongue from the first sip. 23 years on the dispatch desk had taught her to hear what callers couldn't say. Fear had a frequency. Panic had a pitch. But the voice that crackled through her speaker made her set down the cup and grip the edge of her console with white-knuckled fingers. 911, what is your emergency? Breathing. Ragged. Wet. Desperate. Hello, can you hear me? A child's voice. Small. Terrified. Something's moving. Inside my belly. Please. It's kicking. Claire's fingers flew across her keyboard, her heart rate spiking despite 2 decades of training to stay calm. Okay, sweetheart. My name is Claire. Can you tell me yours? Ethan. The word came out broken, barely a whisper. Ethan Cole. Ethan, you're being so brave. Where are you right now? School. The bathroom. By the cafeteria. His breath hitched, a wet, painful sound that made Claire's chest tighten. It hurts so bad, like something's trying to get out. Claire flagged the call. Priority 1. Her screen lit up with the location. Pine Ridge Elementary, 12 miles from the nearest hospital. She glanced at the window. The blizzard had turned the world into a wall of white. Visibility 0. Roads impassable. Ethan, listen to me. Help is coming. Can you unlock the stall door? I can't move. It hurts too much. That's okay. Just stay on the line with me. Don't hang up. Can you do that? Yes. She patched through to the school's main office. The line rang 6 times before someone picked up. Pine Ridge Elementary. This is Ruth. This is 911 dispatch. I have a child in your boy's restroom near the cafeteria reporting severe abdominal distress. Send someone immediately. In this weather, we're operating on skeleton staff. Half our people couldn't make it in. I'll see who I can... Ma'am. Claire's voice hardened. I have a 7-year-old who can barely breathe. Send whoever you have. Now. The line clicked. Claire returned to Ethan. Ethan's still with me. It moved again. His voice cracked, rising with terror. Why is it moving? Why won't it stop? Claire closed her eyes. In 23 years, she'd heard gunshots, car crashes, heart attacks, drownings. But something in this child's voice reached deeper than any of those. This wasn't just pain. This was terror that had been building for a long, long time. Sometimes our bodies make strange feelings when we're scared or hurt. But you're not alone anymore, Ethan. I'm right here. You promise. I promise. Jackson Cole was cleaning his rifle when his phone buzzed. The text was from his old teammate Tommy Reed, who now worked with the county sheriff's department. Jack, emergency at Pine Ridge Elementary. Kid in medical distress. No ambulance can get through. You're closest. Can you respond? Jackson set down the rifle, looked at Titan, who was already on his feet. Amber eyes fixed on his owner, ears, forward body tense. The German shepherd's coat, rippled brown gold and black fur, catching the dim light of the cabin. At 8 years old, Titan had been Jackson's partner through 3 combat deployments and 2 years of readjustment to civilian life. The dog knew when something was wrong before Jackson did. He always knew. Jackson typed back, "On my way. What's the situation?" Kid's reporting something moving inside his abdomen. Possible medical anomaly. School nurse is en route, but they need backup. Roads are gone, man. You'll have to go on foot. Something moving inside his abdomen. Jackson had seen a lot of things in 15 years as a Navy SEAL. He'd seen men torn apart by IEDs, watched friends bleed out in his arms, held the hands of dying children in villages half a world away. But something about those words made his gut clench. He grabbed his pack, checked the thermal blanket, the first aid kit, the emergency supplies he always kept ready. Old habits from a life that never really let go. Titan. Vest. The dog moved to his gear station, sitting perfectly still while Jackson strapped on the working harness. The red cross patch marked him as a medical service animal trained for search and rescue before Jackson had adopted him from the military K-9 program. Jackson pulled on his coat, checked his radio, and opened the door. The wind hit him like a physical force. Snow drove sideways, stinging his face, filling his lungs with ice. Titan pressed against his leg, warm and solid. "Let's go, boy." They stepped into the storm, and the white swallowed them whole. Helen Graves had been a nurse for 31 years. She'd seen broken bones, burst appendixes, allergic reactions that closed throats in seconds. But when she pushed open the restroom door and heard the sound that child was making, her training almost failed her. Ethan Cole lay curled on the tile floor, arms wrapped around his midsection knees, pulled to his chest. His face was gray. Sweat plastered his hair to his forehead, despite the cold seeping through the walls. "Ethan, I'm Nurse Graves. I'm here to help you." The boy's eyes rolled toward her, glassy, unfocused. "It won't stop." Helen knelt beside him, her knees protesting against the hard floor. "Can you tell me what hurts?" "Everything. My whole stomach." His voice dropped to a whisper. "There's something in there. I can feel it pushing." Helen placed her hand gently on his abdomen. The moment she touched him, she felt it. A hard mass pressing outward against the skin. And then movement. Not the random flutter of gas or muscle spasm. Something deliberate. Something rhythmic. Her heart stopped. "Ethan!" She kept her voice steady, though her mind was racing. "Sweetheart, I need you to answer me honestly. Has anyone given you anything to swallow? Pills? Packages? Anything at all?" The boy's eyes went wide, not with confusion, with recognition, with fear. "I can't tell." "Why not?" "He said he'd kill my mom if I told anyone." Helen's blood ran cold. "Who said that?" Ethan started crying. Not the loud, dramatic crying of a child who'd skinned his knee. Silent tears that streamed down his face while his body shook. The crying of someone who had learned long ago that making noise brought punishment. "Ethan, listen to me." Helen gripped his hand. "Whatever he said, whatever he threatened, you are safe now. I will not let anyone hurt you, but I need to know what's inside you so I can help. Can you tell me?" The boy's lips trembled. "Balloons." "Balloons?" "Uncle Ray called them balloons. He made me swallow them, lots of them." His voice broke. "He said if I told anyone, he'd make sure Mama never came home." Helen's medical training collided with horror. Drug capsules. The boy had been used as a mule. And if even one of those capsules ruptured inside him, the poison would kill him within minutes. She grabbed her phone and dialed Claire directly. "Dispatch, this is Nurse Graves at Pine Ridge Elementary. I need immediate medevac authorization." "Ma'am, no helicopters can fly in this weather. We've already checked." "Then find another way. This child has ingested drug capsules. If they rupture, he's dead. Do you understand? Dead." Jackson had been walking for 12 minutes when Titan stopped. The dog's body went rigid, ears forward, nose working the air. "What is it, boy?" Titan barked once, sharp, urgent, then took off running. Jackson followed, pushing through drifts that reached his thighs, fighting wind that tried to knock him flat. Titan was a blur of brown, gold, and black against the white, moving with a certainty that defied the zero visibility. The dog knew where he was going. He always knew. They reached the school in 7 more minutes. Jackson's lungs were burning, his face numb, but he didn't slow down. He followed Titan through a side door that someone had propped open down a hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and fear. Titan stopped at a bathroom door, scratching at the wood, whining. Jackson pushed through. The scene hit him like a flashback to Kandahar. A child on the floor. A woman kneeling over him. Blood. Not much, but enough to show on the pale tile. And a smell that made his combat instincts scream. Chemical. Wrong. Dangerous. "I'm Jackson Cole, former Navy SEAL, now search and rescue. Tommy Reed sent me." Helen looked up, her face a mask of controlled panic. "Thank God. This child has ingested drug capsules. Possible heroin, possibly fentanyl. One of them is leaking. I can smell it." Jackson dropped to his knees beside Ethan. The boy's eyes were rolling back. His breathing was shallow, rapid. The signs of overdose were unmistakable. "How many capsules?" He said 23. 23. Jackson had seen drug mules in Afghanistan. Adults who swallowed condoms filled with heroin to smuggle across borders. Most of them died when the packages ruptured. This was a child. A 7-year-old child. "Ethan?" Jackson's voice was calm, steady. The voice he'd used to talk wounded teammates through extraction. "My name is Jack. I'm going to help you. This is my dog, Titan. He's very friendly. Can you look at me?" The boy's eyes focused just for a moment. "Are you a soldier?" "I was. Now I just help people who need it, and right now you need it. So I'm going to pick you up, and we're going to get you somewhere safe." "Okay." "It hurts." "I know, but I've got you. I promise." Jackson lifted Ethan as gently as he could, cradling the small body against his chest. The boy weighed almost nothing. 40 pounds, maybe. Skin and bones and terror. Titan pressed close, his nose touching Ethan's hand. The boy's fingers curled weakly into the dog's fur. Soft. "That's Titan. He's going to stay with you the whole time. He won't leave your side." Helen was already on her feet. "The ambulance still can't get through. What's your plan?" "My truck has chains. It's a 1/4 mile from here. If I can get him there, I can get him to the hospital." "In this storm? I've driven through worse." Jackson didn't mention that the worse had involved RPGs and enemy fire. This was just snow. Snow he could handle. "Let's move." They made it to the side door when Jackson's phone rang. He shifted Ethan's weight, pulled it out with one hand. "Cole." "Jack, it's Tommy. Listen carefully. The uncle, Ray Cole. He found out someone called 911 from the school. He's on his way there now, armed." Jackson's blood turned to ice. "How far out?" 10 minutes, maybe less. He's got a snowmobile." "Jack, this guy is dangerous. He's connected to the Mendez cartel. If he gets to that kid before you get out, he won't." Jackson hung up. Looked at Helen. "We need to move faster." "What's wrong?" "The man who did this to Ethan is coming, and he's not coming to help." Helen's face went white. "Oh my God." "Stay calm. Stay with me. We're going to get this boy out of here." They pushed through the door into the storm. The wind had picked up, driving snow so thick that Jackson could barely see 3 feet ahead. But he kept moving, one step at a time. Ethan pressed against his chest, Titan leading the way. The boy's breathing was getting worse. Shallow, labored. His skin was turning gray. "Stay with me, buddy. We're almost there." "I'm scared." "I know, but Titan's right here. And so am I. We're not going to let anything happen to you." A sound cut through the wind. Distant, but unmistakable. A snowmobile engine. Jackson's combat training kicked in. He assessed the terrain, the angles, the options. They were in the open. No cover, no concealment. If Ray Cole had a rifle, they were sitting ducks. Helen, take Ethan. Get to those trees. Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you? I'm going to slow him down. You can't fight a man with a gun in this weather. I've done worse with less. He transferred Ethan to Helen's arms. Tighten. Guard. The dog pressed against Helen's leg, but his eyes stayed fixed on Jackson. A whine escaped his throat. I know, boy, but he needs you more than I do right now. Jackson turned toward the sound of the engine. Helen grabbed his arm. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe. He pulled free gently. But that boy is going to live, whatever it takes. He disappeared into the white. Ray Cole saw the figures through the snow. 3 of them moving away from the school. 1 adult carrying something. Another adult. A dog. The kid. They had his nephew. He gunned the snowmobile, closing the distance. His rifle was strapped to his back, loaded ready. 20 years of running drugs had taught him how to handle problems, how to make witnesses disappear, how to tie up loose ends. Ethan was a loose end now. The boy had talked, someone had listened, and that meant everyone involved had to go. He was 200 yards from the group when a figure stepped out of the snow directly in front of him. Ray hit the brakes. The snowmobile skidded, nearly tipping. A man stood in his path, tall, broad, face like it had been carved from stone. No weapon visible, but something in his stance screamed danger. Ray Cole. Who the hell are you? Doesn't matter. What matters is you're not getting past me. Ray reached for his rifle. The hell I'm not. The man moved. Ray had never seen anyone move that fast. 1 second, the stranger was 10 feet away. The next, he was on the snowmobile, his hand locked around Ray's wrist, twisting until the rifle fell into the snow. Ray tried to throw a punch. The man caught his fist, redirected the momentum, and Ray found himself face down in a snowdrift, with his arm wrenched behind his back. Here's what's going to happen. The man's voice was calm, conversational, terrifying. You're going to lie here and wait for the police. If you move, I'll break your arm. If you move again, I'll break the other one. If you try to get up, I'll put you back down. Permanently. You don't know who you're dealing with. The Mendez cartel. I spent 15 years hunting people worse than the Mendez cartel. I've killed men in their sleep for less than what you did to that boy. The grip tightened. Ray felt tendons straining. So believe me when I tell you. You're lucky I'm letting you breathe. Ray stopped struggling. The man reached into Ray's pocket, pulled out a phone, and made a call. Tommy, I've got him. 1/4 mile south of the elementary school. Send units when you can. He's not going anywhere. He hung up, looked down at Ray with eyes that held nothing but cold contempt. What you did to that boy, making him swallow poison, threatening to kill his mother. You're not a man. You're a monster, and monsters don't get to win. Ray opened his mouth to respond. The man's fist came down once, hard, precise. Everything went dark. Jackson found them at the truck. Helen was in the back seat, cradling Ethan, tears streaming down her face. Titan was pressed against the boy's side, his head resting on Ethan's chest, watching his face with intense focus. Is he still breathing, but barely? Helen looked up. What happened? We heard. Uncle Ray won't be bothering anyone for a long time. Jackson climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine. Hold him steady. This is going to be a rough ride. The truck lurched forward, chains biting into the snow. Jackson drove with the controlled aggression of someone who had navigated armored vehicles through ambush zones. Every sense focused, every reaction instant. Behind him, Titan began to bark. What's wrong with the dog? Helen's voice was sharp with panic. He's alerting. Ethan's crashing. Jackson looked in the rearview mirror. Ethan's body was convulsing, his back, arching foam forming at the corners of his mouth. Seizure, Overdose. The capsule had ruptured. Hold him on his side. Don't let him choke. I'm trying. The truck fishtailed. Jackson corrected, kept driving. 12 miles to the hospital. In this weather, at this speed, that was at least 30 minutes. Ethan didn't have 30 minutes. Come on, kid, fight. Don't you dare give up. Titan's barking changed pitch, became a howl, a sound that Jackson had only heard once before in Afghanistan when the dog had refused to leave a fallen soldier's side. A mourning sound. No. Jackson pressed the accelerator harder. We're not losing him. Not today. Not like this. The truck screamed through the white, racing against time, racing against death. And in the back seat, a small boy with poison in his veins fought the hardest battle of his short life. Claire Dawson was still on the line when she heard the seizure start. She had stayed connected to Helen's phone, listening, praying, counting the seconds between updates. When the sounds changed, the dog howling, Helen crying, a man's voice shouting commands she knew. She'd heard this before. The sounds of someone slipping away. Ethan? She spoke into her headset, not knowing if anyone could hear her. Ethan, if you can hear me, you hold on. You fought too hard to give up now. You hear me, you hold on. The line crackled, static, wind, and then faint but unmistakable, a child's voice. I'm trying. Claire's tears fell onto her keyboard. That's all anyone can ask, sweetheart. Just keep trying. Help is coming, I promise. The connection went dead. Claire sat in the silence, surrounded by the hum of computers and the distant chatter of other dispatchers, and she prayed for the first time in 20 years. So, Jackson saw the hospital lights through the snow at 8:34 a.m. He laid on the horn, didn't stop until he reached the emergency entrance. 3 nurses and a doctor came running, alerted by Tommy's radio call. 7-year-old male, ingested 23 drug capsules, possible fentanyl, at least 1 rupture, seizure activity for the past 15 minutes. They pulled Ethan from the truck, transferred him to a gurney, started running. Jackson followed Titan at his heels. A security guard tried to stop the dog. Sir, animals aren't allowed. He's a service animal, certified medical support. And if you try to take him away from that boy, you're going to have a bigger problem than a dog in your hospital. The guard stepped back. Jackson kept moving. They reached a trauma room. The doors closed. Jackson stood on the other side of the glass, watching doctors work on a child he'd met 45 minutes ago. Titan pressed against his leg, whining. I know, boy. I know. Helen appeared beside him. She was shaking, covered in the boy's sweat and her own tears. Will he make it? I don't know. You saved him, back there. You stopped that monster. You got us here. I got him to a hospital. Whether he lives or dies, that's not up to me anymore. Helen looked at him. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Not a Navy SEAL who shows up in a blizzard with a therapy dog to save a dying child. Jackson didn't answer. He just watched through the glass as doctors fought to save a 7-year-old boy who had been forced to swallow 23 capsules of death by someone who should have protected him. Titan sat at his feet, amber eyes fixed on the same scene, waiting, hoping, refusing to give up. Because that was what they did. Both of them. The broken soldier and the loyal dog. They didn't give up on people, no matter how dark the storm. 3 hours passed like 3 years. Jackson stood at the window of the surgical waiting room, his eyes fixed on the snow still falling outside. Titan lay at his feet, head on his paws, but the dog wasn't sleeping. His amber eyes tracked every movement, every sound, every person who walked past. Helen had gone home to change and make phone calls. Tommy Reed had arrived an hour ago, with 2 deputies taken Jackson's statement and left to process Ray Cole at the county jail. The hallway outside was quiet, except for the occasional squeak of nurses' shoes and the distant beeping of monitors. Jackson's phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. Ray's talking. trying to cut a deal. Says the Mendez cartel has 17 other kids working as mules across 3 states. FBI is being notified. 17 other kids. Jackson closed his eyes, felt the familiar rage building in his chest. In Afghanistan, he'd seen what happened when children became weapons. Strapped with explosives, used as shields, sacrificed by adults who saw them as tools instead of people. He'd thought coming home would be different. He'd been wrong. "Mr. Cole." Jackson turned. A doctor in surgical scrubs stood in the doorway, face mask pulled down around her neck. Exhaustion carved into every line of her face. "I'm Dr. Sarah Reyes. I've been working on Ethan." "How is he?" "Alive, for now." She glanced at Titan, didn't comment on the dog's presence. "We removed 19 capsules surgically. 4 others had already ruptured. The amount of fentanyl that entered his system should have killed him 3 times over. But it didn't. No. And I don't have a medical explanation for why." Dr. Reyes shook her head slowly. His heart stopped twice on the table. "We brought him back both times, but the damage to his organs is severe. Liver, kidneys, possibly brain function. We won't know the full extent until he wakes up." "If he wakes up." "When?" Her voice hardened. "I don't deal in if. That boy fought harder than any patient I've ever had. I'm not giving up on him, and neither should you." Titan stood, moved to the doctor's side, and pressed his nose against her hand. Dr. Reyes looked down, startled. Then something in her face softened. "Is this the dog I heard about, the one who found him in the bathroom?" "That's Titan. Former military K9. He hasn't left Ethan's side since we got here. The nurses said he howled during surgery, through the walls, like he knew what was happening." "He probably did." Dr. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then she made a decision. "We don't normally allow animals in the ICU, but I'm going to make an exception. Something tells me Ethan's going to need all the help he can get when he wakes up." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. The next 48 hours are critical. If another capsule leaks, if his organs fail, if the brain damage is worse than we think." She didn't finish the sentence. "Are you family?" "No, I just found him." "Then why are you still here?" Jackson looked at Titan. At the dog who had led him through a blizzard to a dying child. At the partner who had never let him down, not once, in 8 years of service. Because someone has to be. Denise Cole arrived at 4:17 p.m. She came through the emergency room doors like a woman running from a fire, hair wild coat, unbuttoned, terror carved into every feature. 2 police officers flanked her, the same ones who had pulled her out of a motel room 40 miles away where Ray had been keeping her. "Where is he? Where's my son?" Helen intercepted her before she could barrel past the front desk. "Mrs. Cole, I'm Helen Graves. I was with Ethan at the school. He's in the ICU. He's alive." "Alive?" Denise's voice cracked. "Ray said he was dead. Ray said if I tried to leave, if I told anyone, he'd kill Ethan and make me watch. He said, 'Ray is in police custody. He can't hurt you or Ethan anymore.'" Denise collapsed against Helen, sobbing. Her whole body shook with the force of it, months of fear and helplessness pouring out in a flood. "I tried to stop him. I tried to protect my baby. But Ray, he had people everywhere. He said they'd find us no matter where we went. He said there was no escape." "There is now." Helen held her steady. "Your son is fighting, Mrs. Cole. He's been fighting since this morning. He called 911 all by himself. He told the nurse everything, even though he was terrified. He's the bravest little boy I've ever met. He got that from his father." Denise wiped her eyes. "Michael was brave too. That's why Ray had him killed." Helen's blood ran cold. His father was killed. 2 years ago, Michael figured out what Ray was doing. Using kids to move drugs. He threatened to go to the police. Denise's voice went flat hollow. "They made it look like a car accident. But I knew. Ray told me himself right after the funeral. Told me if I ever tried to leave, Ethan would end up the same way. Why didn't you go to the police? Because Ray is the police. Denise looked up, eyes burning. He's got deputies on his payroll, judges, politicians. Anyone who tried to help us ended up dead or disappeared. I didn't know who to trust. Helen thought of Jackson. The stranger who had appeared out of a blizzard, stopped a killer, saved a child. There are people you can trust, Mrs. Cole. People who will fight for you and Ethan. I promise. Jackson was in the hallway when Denise approached him. She was smaller than he'd expected. Thin, fragile. The kind of woman who'd been beaten down by life until she barely cast a shadow. But her eyes were clear, and when she spoke, her voice didn't waver. You're the one who saved my son. I helped. A lot of people helped. The police told me what you did. You stopped Ray. You got Ethan here when no one else could. She reached out, touched his arm. Why? You don't know us. You didn't have to risk your life for a stranger's child. Jackson was quiet for a long moment. When I was in Afghanistan, I watched a village burn. Taliban set fire to it because one family had helped American soldiers. 37 people died. 14 of them were children. Denise's face went pale. I couldn't save them. I tried. I went into the flames, pulled out everyone I could reach. But it wasn't enough. It's never enough. Jackson's jaw tightened. But today it was. Today I could reach him, but so I did. You have children of your own? No, never had the chance. The war took too much. He glanced toward the ICU. But Titan, he chose me. After everything, after all the blood and death and nightmares, he chose to stay with me. He taught me that saving one life doesn't fix the world, but it fixes something. Denise followed his gaze to where Titan sat outside the ICU door, patient, watchful. He's a beautiful dog. He's more than that. He's the reason I'm still here. She was quiet. Then, can I see my son? They're limiting visitors. But I'll talk to Dr. Reyes, see what I can do. Thank you. She touched his arm again, softer this time. For everything. The first time Ethan opened his eyes, Titan was there. It was 2:33 in the morning. The ICU was dim, monitors beeping their steady rhythm, nurses moving like ghosts between beds. Jackson had refused to leave, sleeping in a chair by the door, waking every time someone passed. Titan had positioned himself at the foot of Ethan's bed, head resting on the mattress, eyes fixed on the boy's face. When Ethan's eyes fluttered open, Titan was the first thing he saw. The dog's tail wagged. Just once. A small movement that said everything. Hey. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper, raw from the breathing tube they'd removed that afternoon. You're still here. Titan licked his hand. Good boy. Ethan's fingers curled weakly into the dog's fur. Best boy. Jackson appeared at the bedside. Hey, buddy, how are you feeling? Hurts. I know, but the doctors say you're doing better. The bad stuff is out of your belly. You're going to be okay. Ethan's eyes searched Jackson's face. Did you stop him, Uncle Ray? Yeah, he's in jail. He can't hurt you anymore. What about Mama? She's here. She's been here all day, sitting right outside that door. She couldn't stop crying. She was so happy you were okay. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He said he'd kill her. He said if I told anyone. He lied. That's what people like him do. They lie to make you scared, to make you do what they want. Jackson leaned closer. But you didn't let him win, Ethan. You called for help. You told the truth. You were braver than most adults I know. I wasn't brave. I was scared. That's what brave is. Being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Titan whined, pressing closer to Ethan's side. Does he have to leave? Ethan asked. I don't want him to leave. He's not going anywhere, I promise. Ethan's eyes drifted closed. His hand stayed tangled in Titan's fur. Jackson watched them for a long moment. The boy who had survived the unsurvivable. The dog who had found him when no one else could. Something in his chest loosened. A knot he hadn't even known was there. Maybe saving one life did fix something. Maybe it fixed everything. The FBI arrived the next morning. Special Agent Diana Walsh was sharp professional and had the kind of eyes that had seen too much and still kept looking. She interviewed Jackson for 2 hours, took statements from Helen and Claire, and spent the rest of the day building a case against Ray Cole and the Mendez cartel. The information your nephew provided is extraordinary. Walsh told Denise in a private meeting Jackson wasn't supposed to overhear, but did anyway. He identified locations, names operational patterns, things we've been trying to piece together for years. He's 7 years old. Denise's voice was hollow. He shouldn't know any of those things. No, he shouldn't. But because he does, we've already arrested 4 other handlers and located 11 of the 17 children being used as mules. By the end of the week, we expect to have them all. And Ray Cole is facing federal trafficking charges. If he's convicted, he's looking at life without parole. Walsh paused. But you should know, Mrs. Cole. The Mendez cartel doesn't take kindly to informants. They've already put a price on your head. And Ethan's. Denise went white. What? We can offer you protection, witness relocation, new identities, a fresh start somewhere they can't find you. We'd have to leave everything behind, our home, our lives. You'd have to leave, or you'd have to die. Walsh's voice was matter of fact. Those are your options. I'm sorry there isn't a third choice. Denise was quiet for a long time. Then she asked a question Jackson hadn't expected. What about the man who saved us, Jackson Cole? Is he in danger too? Walsh hesitated. Mr. Cole's involvement has been kept quiet. But if the cartel discovers what he did, yes, he would be a target. Does he know? I'll be briefing him this afternoon. Jackson took the news the way he took most things, with cold-controlled calm that hid a storm underneath. So, I'm on a cartel hit list now. Potentially. Walsh studied him across the hospital cafeteria table. Your military record is classified, which helps. But if they dig deep enough, they'll find you. Let them. Excuse me. Let them find me. Jackson's eyes were flat, emotionless. I spent 15 years hunting people who hide in shadows. Drug lords, warlords, terrorists. I know how they think. I know how they operate. And I know how to make them regret targeting me. Mr. Cole, this isn't Afghanistan. You can't just defend myself, protect the people who need protecting. He leaned forward. That boy in the ICU, he's 7 years old. He swallowed 23 capsules of poison because some monster threatened to kill his mother. Now you're telling me there are more monsters coming for him. I'm telling you to be careful. I'm always careful. Jackson stood. But I'm also finished running from fights that matter. If the Mendez cartel wants a war, I'll give them one. He walked out, Titan at his heels. Walsh watched him go, something like respect flickering in her eyes. You're either the bravest man I've ever met, she muttered to herself, or the craziest. The assassination attempt came 3 days later. Jackson was walking Titan around the hospital parking lot, letting the dog stretch his legs after days of confinement, when his instinct screamed. Movement. Wrong angle. Wrong timing. He grabbed Titan's harness and dove behind a car just as the first bullet cracked past his head. 2 shooters. Professional. Silenced weapons. They'd positioned themselves at opposite ends of the lot, creating a crossfire kill zone. Jackson had survived 100 ambushes. This one was amateur hour by comparison. He crawled along the row of cars, using them for cover, working his way toward the nearest shooter. Titan moved with him, silent, deadly, the same way they'd moved through Taliban compounds in the mountains of Afghanistan. The first shooter never saw him coming. Jackson came up behind the man, wrapped an arm around his throat, and applied pressure until the struggling stopped. 60 seconds. No sound. No witnesses. The second shooter realized something was wrong when his partner didn't check in on their radio. He started to move. Jackson was already there. This one saw him, tried to raise his weapon. Jackson's hand closed around the barrel, twisted it aside, and drove his elbow into the man's throat. The shooter went down, gasping, choking. Jackson put his knee on the man's chest and pressed. "Who sent you?" The man spat in his face. Jackson pressed harder. Something cracked. "I asked you a question." "Mendez." The word came out strangled. "There's a contract. 50,000 for the kid, 20 for you." "How many more are coming?" "I don't know. I don't." Jackson's hand closed around the man's throat. "How many?" Three more. They're already inside the hospital. They're going for the boy." Jackson released him, pulled out his phone, dialed Walsh. 3 shooters inside Pine Ridge General, heading for the ICU. Ethan Cole is the target. "How do you know?" "Because I just killed the 2 they sent for me." He hung up before she could respond. "Titan, hospital, now." The dog understood. They ran. The ICU was in lockdown when Jackson arrived. Nurses huddled behind the central station. Alarms blared. Security guards lay unconscious in the hallway. And at the far end of the corridor, 3 men with guns were moving toward Ethan's room. Denise stood in front of the door, unarmed, alone. Her body was the only thing between her son and death. "Get out of the way, lady." The lead shooter's voice was cold, professional. "We're not here for you. You'll have to go through me." "That can be arranged." He raised his weapon. Jackson hit him from the side like a freight train. They crashed into the wall, the shooter's gun flying from his hand. Jackson drove his fist into the man's face once, twice. 3 times, felt cartilage give way, felt bone crunch. The second shooter turned, tried to aim. Titan was on him before he could fire. 70 pounds of German Shepherd fury, taking him down, jaws locked on his gun arm. The third shooter panicked, fired wildly. A bullet sparked off the wall inches from Denise's head. Jackson pulled a fire extinguisher from the wall, hurled it with the accuracy of someone who'd thrown grenades for a living. It caught the shooter in the chest, knocked him backward, sent his weapon skittering across the floor. Jackson was on him in 3 steps. 1 punch to the solar plexus. 1 to the temple. The man dropped like a stone. Silence. Denise stood frozen, her whole body shaking. Behind her, Ethan was crying, calling for his mother. Jackson looked at the 3 unconscious shooters. At Titan, who was standing guard over the one he'd taken down, teeth bared, ready for more. At the door behind Denise, where a 7-year-old boy had almost died for the 2nd time in a week. "You okay?" Denise couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Good. Get inside. Stay with Ethan. Don't open the door for anyone except me or Agent Walsh." "Where are you going?" "To make sure there aren't more of them." He moved down the corridor, Titan at his side, checking every room, every corner, every shadow. The hospital was clear. But Jackson knew this wasn't over. The Mendez cartel had just declared war, and Jackson Cole had never lost a war in his life. Walsh arrived 20 minutes later with a full FBI tactical team. She surveyed the carnage in the hallway. 5 shooters in custody, 2 more in the parking lot, all of them wounded badly enough to need medical attention, and turned to Jackson with an expression he couldn't read. "You did this. By yourself." "Titan helped." "Mr. Cole." Walsh stepped closer, lowered her voice. "I've seen your classified file. I know what you're capable of. But this is something else. They came for a 7-year-old child. What did you expect me to do?" "I expected you to wait for backup." "Backup would have been too late." Walsh looked at Titan, who was sitting at Jackson's feet. tongue lolling, looking for all the world like a normal pet instead of a weapon who'd help take down a cartel assassination squad. The cartel will send more. You know that. Let them. This isn't a game. No, it's not. Jackson's voice hardened. It's a war, and I've been fighting wars since I was 19 years old. The difference is, this time I'm not fighting for a government or a flag, or some politician's agenda. I'm fighting for that kid in there, and that's something worth dying for. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. We can offer you protective custody. You and the Cole family, safe house, 24-hour security. Will it be enough? Honestly, I don't know. The Mendez cartel has resources, connections. They've been known to infiltrate law enforcement, buy off witnesses, eliminate anyone who threatens their operation. She paused. But we have resources too. And right now, taking down this cartel is our top priority. Because of the children. Because of 18 children who were being used as drug mules. Because of at least 12 more who died before we even knew the operation existed. Because someone finally gave us the evidence we needed to bring these monsters down. Walsh looked toward Ethan's room. That little boy is the bravest witness I've ever worked with. I'm not going to let him die. Neither am I. They stood in silence for a moment. Two warriors from different worlds united by a common enemy. Get some rest, Mr. Cole. Walsh turned to leave. Tomorrow we start planning how to take down a cartel. Jackson watched her go. Then he walked back to Ethan's room, pushed through the door, and found Denise sitting by her son's bed, holding his hand while he slept. Titan immediately jumped up onto the bed, curling himself around Ethan's legs. The boy stirred, smiled in his sleep, his hand finding the dog's fur. Jackson sat in the chair by the window and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the war would continue. But tonight, this moment, this small circle of safety in a world full of darkness, tonight they had won. And that was enough. The safe house was a cabin in the mountains 40 miles from the nearest town. FBI agents rotated in 12-hour shifts. Surveillance cameras covered every approach. Motion sensors lined the perimeter. On paper, it was one of the most secure locations in the state. But Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He stood at the window watching the tree-lined Titan pressed against his leg. The dog had been restless all morning, pacing, whining, refusing to settle. After 8 years together, Jackson had learned to trust that instinct. You feel it too, don't you, boy? Titan's ears flattened. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Behind them, Ethan was playing cards with his mother at the kitchen table. The boy had been released from the hospital 4 days ago, still weak, still healing, but alive. The doctors called it a miracle. Jackson called it stubbornness. Got any threes? Ethan asked. Go fish. Denise smiled, but Jackson could see the strain beneath it. She hadn't slept more than a few hours at a time since they'd arrived. Every noise made her jump. Every shadow made her freeze. She was waiting for the other shoe to drop. So was Jackson. His phone buzzed. Walsh. Cole, we need to talk. Private. Give me 5 minutes. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him. The FBI agent on perimeter duty nodded as he passed. What's wrong? Walsh's voice was tight. We have a leak. Jackson's blood ran cold. Explain. This morning, the Mendez cartel executed 3 of our witnesses in protective custody. Different locations, different handlers. All hit within the same hour. They knew where the safe houses were. Someone on our team is feeding them information. We've narrowed it down to 6 possible suspects, but we can't move on any of them without tipping off the mole. Jackson looked back at the cabin, at the window where Ethan's small face was visible watching him. Do they know where we are? I don't know. The location was kept off official records, but if the mole has high enough clearance, then we're sitting ducks. I'm sending additional agents, ETA 2 hours. That might be too late. Cole, listen to me. Do not engage. Do not move the family. We need to coordinate. Walsh, In 2 hours, that boy could be dead. His mother could be dead. I could be dead. You want me to sit here and wait for permission while a cartel death squad rolls up the driveway? Silence on the line. What do you need? Walsh asked finally. Weapons, vehicle, and the location of the nearest FBI field office where I can bring them if things go sideways. Done. I'll text you the coordinates. And Cole. Yeah. Trust no one, not even the agents at that safe house. Until we identify the mole, anyone could be compromised. She hung up. Jackson stood in the cold mind racing through scenarios. 3 witnesses dead. A mole inside the FBI. A cartel that had proven it would stop at nothing to silence anyone who threatened its operation. And a 7-year-old boy who had become the most dangerous witness of all. Titan. The dog appeared at his side instantly. We're moving. Tonight. He told Denise at dinner. Ethan was asleep on the couch, exhausted from physical therapy exercises the hospital had prescribed. Titan lay beside him, the boy's hand resting on the dog's back, even in sleep. There's a leak. Jackson kept his voice low. FBI witnesses are being killed. Walsh thinks someone on the inside is working for the cartel. Denise's face went pale. The agents here. I don't know, but I'm not taking chances. We're leaving tonight. Where will we go? I have contacts, people from my military days, off the grid, untraceable. He paused. It won't be comfortable, and I can't promise how long we'll have to stay hidden. Denise looked at her son, at the small body curled against the German shepherd, who had become his constant companion. You've already done so much for us. Why do you keep risking your life? Jackson was quiet for a long moment. When I came home from Afghanistan, I thought I was done. Done fighting. Done caring. Done living, really. I spent 2 years in a bottle, trying to forget the things I'd seen, the people I'd lost. He looked at Titan. That dog is the only reason I'm still here. He wouldn't let me give up. He kept showing up, kept demanding to be walked, kept dragging me back to the world when all I wanted was to disappear. He saved your life. He gave me a reason to save myself. Jackson turned to face her. Ethan reminds me of why I became a soldier in the first place. Not for the flag or the medals. For the people who can't fight back. For the kids who shouldn't have to. I've failed too many of them over there. I'm not failing this one. Denise reached out, touched his arm. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive the night. They left at 0200. Jackson had spent the evening pretending everything was normal, watching the FBI agents, looking for signs of deception. Agent Reynolds, the team leader, seemed solid, methodical. But Agent Garrett kept checking his phone, kept stepping outside to take calls that lasted too long. Could be nothing. Could be everything. Jackson loaded Denise and Ethan into the SUV while the agents were doing their shift change. He'd disabled the cabin's interior cameras earlier, blamed it on a power fluctuation. By the time anyone realized they were gone, he wanted to be 30 miles away. Titan jumped into the back seat, positioning himself between Ethan and the window. Where are we going? Ethan asked, still groggy from sleep. Somewhere safe. Go back to sleep, buddy. Is the bad man coming again? Jackson met the boy's eyes in the rearview mirror. Maybe, but I won't let him hurt you. I promise. I know. Ethan's hand found Titan's fur. You and Titan are the bravest people in the whole world. Jackson started the engine. They were 3 miles from the safe house when his instinct screamed. Headlights. Coming fast. 2 vehicles, no 3 converging from different directions. Get down! Denise threw herself over Ethan, shielding him with her body. Titan growled, hackles raised. The first vehicle cut across the road, blocking their path. The second and third boxed them in from behind. Ambush. Jackson's combat training kicked in. He analyzed angles, escape routes, weapon options. The SUV was armored. Walsh had insisted on that at least, but it wouldn't hold forever against sustained fire. Men poured out of the vehicles. 8, 10, all armed, all moving with professional coordination. Not random cartel soldiers. These were mercenaries, military trained. One of them stepped forward, and Jackson's heart stopped. Agent Garrett. "Mr. Cole." Garrett's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Please step out of the vehicle. Let's not make this messier than it needs to be." Jackson's hand moved toward his weapon. "I wouldn't." Garrett gestured, and 3 laser sights appeared on the SUV's windows. "Those are aimed at the woman and the child. You might be fast, but you're not faster than a bullet." Jackson's jaw clenched. "How much did they pay you?" "Enough. More than the Bureau ever would." Garrett shrugged. "It's nothing personal, Cole. Just business. The boy knows too much. The mother knows too much, and you've become entirely too inconvenient. Walsh will hunt you down. Walsh will find bodies and blame it on the cartel. That's the beauty of this arrangement. No loose ends." Garrett raised his weapon. "Now, step out, or I start shooting." Jackson looked at Denise, at Ethan, at Titan. 3 people he'd sworn to protect. 3 lives that depended on what he did in the next 60 seconds. He opened the door slowly. "Hands where I can see them." Jackson raised his hands, stepped out of the vehicle, put himself between the guns and the people in the SUV. "Smart man." Garrett moved closer. "You know I was hoping you'd resist. Your file made you sound impressive. 15 years, classified operations, the kind of soldier they make movies about." He stopped 3 feet away. "But in the end, you're just a man, and men die." He raised his weapon. Jackson moved. Not away from the gun. Into it. His hand closed around Garrett's wrist, twisted, redirected the barrel just as it fired. The shot went wide, sparking off the SUV's armor. In the same motion, Jackson drove his elbow into Garrett's throat, felt cartilage give way, heard the man's strangled gasp. The mercenaries opened fire. Jackson used Garrett's body as a shield, pulling the dying man in front of him, drawing the traitor's backup weapon from his holster. 2 shots. 2 mercenaries down. He dropped. Garrett dove behind the SUV, came up firing. Inside the vehicle, Titan was going insane. Barking, snarling, throwing himself against the door. "Titan, stay." More shots. Bullets pinging off armored glass. Someone was circling, trying to flank. Jackson dropped to the ground, rolled under the SUV, saw boots approaching. He fired twice, heard a scream, saw the man fall. 6 down. At least 4 more. He scrambled out, found cover behind the rear wheel. His magazine was almost empty. He had maybe 3 rounds left. Movement to his right. A mercenary coming around the front of the SUV, weapon raised. Jackson had no angle. The mercenary grinned, finger tightening on the trigger. The SUV door exploded open. Titan launched himself through the gap, 70 pounds of fury and teeth. He hit the mercenary at chest level, drove him backward, jaws locking around the man's gun arm. The weapon fired wild. The man screamed. Jackson was already moving, running past Titan and his target, engaging the remaining mercenaries with bare hands and borrowed weapons. It was over in 90 seconds. 8 men lay on the ground, 2 dead, 6 wounded. Garrett was still alive, barely clutching his ruined throat, making wet gurgling sounds. Jackson stood over him. "How many more? How many other moles?" Garrett tried to speak. Couldn't. Blood bubbled between his lips. "You're going to die here." Jackson crouched down. "But before you do, you're going to tell me everything. Names, locations, the whole network." Garrett's eyes went wide with terror. Jackson smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Let's begin." Walsh arrived with a tactical team an hour later. She found Jackson sitting on the hood of the SUV, cleaning blood from his hands. Denise and Ethan were inside Titan, standing guard. The mercenaries were zip-tied and waiting for transport. And Agent Garrett was still alive. Barely. But he'd talked. 3 more moles. Jackson handed her a piece of paper covered in names and notes. 2 in the FBI, 1 in the U.S. Marshals. Garrett gave up everything. Safe houses, communication protocols, the whole network. Walsh stared at the list. How did you get him to talk? I asked politely. She looked at Garrett, at the man's broken fingers, his dislocated shoulder, the fear still frozen on his unconscious face. Right, politely. He was going to kill a 7-year-old boy. I wasn't inclined to be gentle. Walsh didn't argue. She just folded the paper and put it in her pocket. The cartel leadership is meeting tomorrow night. We have the location thanks to information from the other witnesses we've recovered. If we move fast, we can take them all down at once. And Ethan, Denise? We're moving them to a new location. Maximum security. No one outside my direct team will know where. Not good enough. Excuse me. Jackson faced her directly. Every safe house you've used has been compromised. Every witness you've protected has been found. Until this is over, until every cartel leader is dead or in custody, I'm not letting them out of my sight. Mr. Cole, this is a federal operation. We can't have a civilian. I stopped being a civilian when I took down 8 mercenaries single-handed. When I extracted intelligence that your own agents couldn't get. When I became the only person in this entire operation who hasn't been bought, compromised, or killed. Walsh was quiet. You need me, Jackson continued. And more importantly, that boy needs me. He's been through hell. He's lost everything except his mother and a dog that won't leave his side. I'm not abandoning him now. What are you proposing? I go with you. The raid tomorrow. The takedown. I see this through to the end. That's not protocol. Protocol got 3 witnesses killed and almost got a child murdered. I'm done with protocol. Walsh studied him for a long moment. The blood on his clothes, the steel in his eyes, the certainty of a man who had been forged in war and refused to break. Fine, you're in. But you follow my orders. You stay with the team. And when this is over, you walk away. Back to your life, whatever that looks like. Deal. They shook hands. Behind them, Ethan's face appeared in the SUV window. The boy pressed his palm against the glass, looking at Jackson with eyes that held trust, hope, something like love. Jackson pressed his palm against the glass from the outside. A promise. Unspoken, but absolute. He would end this, whatever it took. The new safe house was a military installation. Andrews Air Force Base. Maximum security. Armed guards on every entrance. No one in or out without clearance from Walsh herself. Ethan and Denise were given quarters in the base hospital, officially listed as family members of a deployed service member. Cover story. Protection. The best Walsh could offer. Jackson spent the night before the raid sitting with Ethan. The boy couldn't sleep. Too much fear, too much trauma, too many nights of waiting for monsters to come through the door. Tell me about the war, Ethan said quietly. Was it scary? Yes, very scary. But you were a soldier. Soldiers aren't supposed to be scared. Everyone gets scared, buddy. The bravest people I ever knew were scared most of the time. That's what makes courage real. Not being afraid means you don't understand what's happening. Being afraid and still doing the right thing, that's what makes a hero. Ethan was quiet. Titan lay between them, his head resting on the boy's leg. Am I a hero? Jackson looked at this small, broken, impossibly strong child. You're the biggest hero I've ever met. But I didn't fight anyone. I just swallowed pills and called for help. You survived. You survived months of abuse. You survived being poisoned. You survived when grown men would have given up. Jackson put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. And because you survived, because you talked, 17 other kids are free now. Kids who were being hurt the same way you were. You saved them, Ethan, by being brave enough to make that phone call. Tears welled in the boy's eyes. I was so scared. I know. I thought I was going to die. I know. But Titan found me. Ethan's hand stroked the dog's fur. And then you came. And you didn't give up. I'll never give up on you. Not ever. Ethan leaned against him, small body pressing into Jackson's side. Can you stay until this is over? I'll stay. Promise. Promise. They sat in silence, the man and the boy and the dog, bound together by circumstances neither had chosen, but neither would change. Tomorrow, Jackson would go to war one more time. Tonight, he would stand guard over the child who had reminded him why life was worth fighting for. So, Denise found him on the base roof at midnight. She'd wrapped herself in a blanket against the cold, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking younger and more fragile than he'd ever seen her. Couldn't sleep either. Jackson shook his head. Old habit. Before a mission, I always need to be alone with my thoughts. She stood beside him, looking up at the stars. Michael used to do that. Before he proposed, before important meetings. He'd go somewhere quiet and just think. You miss him. Every day. Her voice cracked. He was a good man, the best man I ever knew. And Ray killed him like he was nothing. Ray is in prison. He's never getting out. I know. But it doesn't bring Michael back. Nothing will. They stood in silence for a long moment. What happens after tomorrow? Denise asked. If you succeed, if the cartel is destroyed. Then it's over. You and Ethan get your lives back. New names maybe. New place. But freedom. And you? Jackson didn't answer right away. I don't know. I've spent so long fighting that I don't really know how to stop. Denise turned to face him. You could stay. With us. Ethan adores you. And I... She hesitated. I feel safe when you're around. For the first time in years, I feel like someone is actually on our side. Denise. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know that wherever we end up, there's a place for you. If you want it. She touched his hand. Brief. Gentle. Then she walked back inside, leaving Jackson alone with the stars and the weight of everything he'd never allowed himself to want. A family. A home. A reason to live that didn't involve blood and violence. He looked down at his hands. The hands that had killed so many. The hands that had saved a boy's life. Could they learn to build something instead of destroy? He didn't know. But for the first time in 15 years, he wanted to find out. The raid briefing was at 0600. 30 agents, 4 tactical teams, air support, surveillance, everything the FBI could bring to bear against the Mendez cartel leadership. Walsh stood at the front of the room, pointer in hand. The target is a compound in rural Montana. Our intelligence indicates that cartel leadership will be meeting tonight to discuss restructuring after recent losses. Victor Mendez himself will be present. She clicked through satellite images. We move at 2200 hours. Team 1 secures the perimeter. Team 2 breaches the main house. Team 3 handles vehicles and personnel attempting to flee. Team 4 is reserve. She looked directly at Jackson. Mr. Cole will be embedded with Team 2. His primary objective is intelligence gathering. We want Mendez alive if possible. We want his records, his contacts, his entire network. And if taking him alive isn't possible, someone asked. Walsh's expression didn't change. Then we make sure he never hurts another child again. The briefing continued for another hour. Jackson memorized every detail. Entry points, hostage protocols, communication frequencies. This was it. The final battle. By tomorrow, the Mendez cartel would be destroyed. Or Jackson Cole would be dead. Either way, Ethan would be safe. That was all that mattered. Before he left, Jackson went to say goodbye. Ethan was playing with Titan on the hospital floor, throwing a ball and laughing when the dog brought it back. For a moment, he looked like any other 7-year-old. Happy. Carefree. The way children were supposed to look. Hey, buddy. Ethan looked up and something in his face shifted. He knew. Somehow he knew. You're going to fight the bad people. Yes. Is it going to be dangerous? Maybe. But I've done dangerous things before, and I always came back. Ethan stood, walked over, wrapped his arms around Jackson's waist. Come back this time too. Promise. Jackson knelt down eye level with the boy. I promise to try my absolute hardest. But I need you to promise me something too. What? No matter what happens, you keep fighting. You keep being brave. You don't let anyone make you feel small or scared or worthless. You're a hero, Ethan Cole. Never forget that. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. Jackson pulled him into a hug, felt the small body tremble against his chest. I love you, Jack. The words hit him harder than any bullet ever had. I love you too, buddy. Titan pressed against them both, completing the circle. Jackson held them for a long moment. Then he let go, stood up, and walked out the door. Behind him, a boy and a dog watched him leave. Neither of them cried. They just waited, and hoped, and believed that the bravest man they knew would come home. The helicopter cut through the Montana night like a blade through silk. Jackson sat in the darkness, weapon across his lap, surrounded by the best tactical operators the FBI had to offer. Team 2. 12 men and women who had trained for exactly this moment. But none of them had been where Jackson had been. None of them had seen what he'd seen. And none of them had a 7-year-old boy waiting for them to come home. 5 minutes to insertion. The pilot's voice crackled through his headset. Jackson closed his eyes, breathed deep, found the cold, hard center of himself that had carried him through 15 years of war. Tonight, it ended. One way or another. Cole, Walsh's voice from the seat beside him. You good? I'm good. Remember the objective. Mendez alive if possible. Intelligence recovery is priority 1. I remember. And Cole? She paused. Thank you for everything you've done for that boy. Jackson opened his eyes. Don't thank me until we're on the other side of this. The helicopter began its descent. Below them, the Mendez compound sprawled across a valley floor. Satellite imagery had shown a main house, 3 outbuildings, a helipad, and a motor pool. Ground intelligence suggested 20 to 30 armed personnel, plus household staff. Victor Mendez himself was inside. The man who had built an empire on the bodies of children. The man who had ordered Ethan's death. The man who was about to learn what happened when you hurt someone a Navy SEAL cared about. 30 seconds. Jackson checked his weapon one final time. Locked and loaded, safety off. 10 seconds. The helicopter touched down. The doors flew open. And Jackson Cole went to war. The perimeter fell in under 2 minutes. Team 1 hit the outer guards with surgical precision, dropping them before they could raise an alarm. Team 3 secured the vehicles, cutting off escape routes. By the time Team 2 reached the main house, the compound was already a kill box. Jackson moved with the stack weapon up, every sense screaming. The house was bigger than the satellite imagery suggested. More rooms, more corners, more places for enemies to hide. Ground floor clear. The team leader's voice came through the earpiece. Moving to second level. They climbed the stairs. Jackson took point muscle memory, guiding him through movements he'd performed 1,000 times in training and another 1,000 times in combat. A door opened ahead. Muzzle flash. Jackson dropped, rolled, came up firing. The shooter fell. Contact, second floor hallway. More gunfire. Shouts in Spanish. Bodies dropping. The team pushed forward room by room, clearing with mechanical efficiency. By the time they reached the master suite at the end of the hall, Jackson had personally neutralized 4 hostiles. The door was reinforced. Steel core, electronic lock. Breaching charge. Negative. We need what's inside intact. The team leader looked at Jackson. Cole, can you work that lock? Jackson examined the mechanism. Military grade, but he'd cracked worse in Afghanistan. Give me 60 seconds. He pulled a lockpick set from his vest and went to work. The tumblers clicked. The mechanism whirred. 53 seconds. The door swung open. Victor Mendez stood in the center of the room, surrounded by 4 bodyguards, a laptop open on the desk behind him. He was younger than Jackson expected, 40 maybe, handsome, wearing a suit that cost more than most people made in a year, and he was smiling. "Mr. Cole, I was hoping we'd meet." Jackson's weapon didn't waver. "On your knees, hands behind your head. Do you know who I am? What I can offer you?" Mendez spread his hands, palms up. $10 million, wired to any account you name. Just walk away. Forget you ever met Ethan Cole. I said, on your knees. 20 million, more money than you could spend in 5 lifetimes, all for turning around and walking out that door. Jackson stepped closer, the bodyguard's tensed hands moving toward weapons. You used children as drug mules. You had a 7-year-old swallow 23 capsules of fentanyl. You threatened to kill his mother. You sent assassins to murder him in a hospital bed. Business, Mendez shrugged. Nothing personal. It's personal to me. Jackson fired. The shot hit Mendez in the kneecap. The cartel boss screamed, collapsed clutching his shattered joint. The bodyguards drew weapons. Jackson and Team 2 cut them down in a crossfire that lasted 2.3 seconds. Mendez lay on the floor, moaning, blood pooling beneath him. Jackson stood over him, weapon pointed at the man's head. Where are the records, the network database, the names of everyone in your organization? Go to hell. Jackson pressed his boot against the ruined knee. Mendez screamed again. I've been to hell. Spent 15 years there. This is nothing. He increased the pressure. The records. Now. Laptop. Mendez gasped, face gray with pain. On the desk. Everything is there. Encrypted, but the password is. I don't need your password. I need your finger. Jackson grabbed Mendez's hand, dragged him to the desk, pressed the cartel boss's thumb against the biometric scanner. The laptop unlocked. Files, hundreds of them. Financial records, contact lists, operational protocols. The entire Mendez network laid bare. Walsh, this is Cole. We have the target and the intelligence. Compound is secure. Copy that, Cole. Outstanding work. Medical teams are en route for the prisoner. Jackson looked down at Mendez, who was still moaning on the floor. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a federal supermax. No deals, no early release. Just you and 4 concrete walls until you die. Mendez's eyes burned with hatred. You think this is over? I have people everywhere. In the FBI, in the government. Even if you lock me up, my network will find that boy. They'll find his mother. They'll find everyone he's ever loved and make them suffer. No, they won't. Jackson crouched down close enough to see the fear beginning to crack through Mendez's arrogance. Because by tomorrow your network won't exist. Every name on that laptop will be arrested or dead. Every asset will be frozen. Every operation will be shut down. He smiled cold and final. You built your empire on the suffering of children. Now watch it burn. He stood and walked away. Behind him, Mendez's screams echoed through the empty house. The extraction took 47 minutes. Jackson helped load prisoners, secured evidence, coordinated with Walsh on the transfer of intelligence to FBI analysts in Washington. The raid had been textbook perfect. 0 casualties on their side, 23 arrests, Victor Mendez in custody. It was over. So why did Jackson's instincts keep screaming that something was wrong? He found Walsh by the command vehicle reviewing preliminary data from the laptop. Problem. I don't know. Jackson scanned the compound, the darkness beyond the floodlights. Something feels off. We got Mendez. We got his records. What could be off? He gave up too easily. The password. The biometric. A man like that doesn't surrender his entire empire without a backup plan. Walsh frowned. You think this is a trap? I think men like Mendez don't build billion-dollar drug operations by being stupid. He had to know we were coming. The moles were feeding him information for months, so why was he still here? The question hung in the air. Jackson's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Cole? A voice he didn't recognize. Calm, cultured. You've been very impressive tonight, but I'm afraid the game is not quite finished. Who is this? My name is not important. What's important is what I'm about to tell you. While you were busy capturing Victor Mendez, my people were busy doing something else. Jackson's blood turned to ice. You have exactly 45 minutes to reach Andrews Air Force Base. After that, the woman and the child will be dead. Oh, and Mr. Cole, don't bother warning the FBI. The people I've sent are already inside. If they detect any unusual activity, they'll accelerate the timeline. The line went dead. Jackson stood frozen, his mind racing through possibilities, his heart hammering against his ribs. Ethan, Denise, they were supposed to be safe, protected, maximum security. But Mendez's network had proven it could penetrate any security. Cole, Walsh was staring at him. What's wrong? They're going after Ethan, right now, at Andrews. What? How is that? I don't know how. I just know it's happening. Jackson was already moving toward the nearest vehicle. Call the base, get them on lockdown, and pray we're not too late. He threw himself into a tactical SUV, started the engine, and floored the accelerator. Andrews Air Force Base was 63 miles away. He had 44 minutes. Jackson drove like a man possessed. The SUV screamed down mountain roads, taking corners at speeds that would have killed a lesser driver. His phone was pressed to his ear, but the base wasn't answering. Neither was Denise's phone. Neither was the direct line to hospital security. Something had already happened. Come on, come on, come on! The miles blurred past. 38 minutes. 32. 27. His phone rang. Walsh. Cole, I can't reach anyone at Andrews. All lines are down. Communication blackout. They're jamming the base. That's not possible. That's a military installation. You can't just... You can if you have people on the inside. If you've been planning this for months. If the whole Mendez raid was a distraction to draw attention away from the real target. Silence on the line. Then Walsh's voice, sharp with realization. Mendez was bait. Mendez was always bait. He sacrificed himself, so his network could eliminate the biggest threat to their operation. Ethan is the key witness. Without him, the case falls apart. Without him, half the arrests tonight get thrown out on appeal. I'm redirecting every available unit. ETA 15 minutes behind you. That might be too late. Jackson hung up. Pressed the accelerator harder. The base appeared on the horizon at minute 34. The main gate was dark. No guards visible. No lights. Jackson didn't slow down. He crashed through the barrier, felt it shatter against the SUV's reinforced frame, and kept going. The hospital was half a mile inside. He made it in 40 seconds. The parking lot was empty. The building was dark. Jackson grabbed his weapon, threw open the door, and ran. Joy. Inside chaos. Bodies lay in the hallways, security guards, medical staff, all dead, all killed with precise professional shots. Jackson moved through the carnage, weapon up every sense, straining for signs of life. Ethan's room was on the 3rd floor. He took the stairs 3 at a time, burst through the fire door, and froze. Titan lay at the end of the hallway, whimpering. The dog was bleeding from a wound in his side, but he was still alive, still trying to drag himself toward Ethan's room. Titan! Jackson ran to his partner, dropped to his knees. The wound was bad, but not fatal. A bullet had grazed the dog's ribs, leaving a bloody furrow across his flank. Good boy, stay here. I'm going to get them. Titan whined, amber eyes fixed on the closed door of Ethan's room. Jackson stood, raised his weapon, and kicked the door open. Denise was on the floor, unconscious but breathing. A bruise was forming on her temple where someone had hit her. Ethan's bed was empty. They had taken him. Jackson's vision went red. He searched the room, found a trail of blood leading to the window. Fire escape. They had gone down, not up. He followed. The trail led to the base's helipad. A helicopter was warming up, rotors spinning. 3 men stood beside it, weapons ready. A 4th was dragging Ethan toward the open door. The boy was struggling, fighting, screaming. "Let me go! Let me go!" Jackson assessed the situation in a heartbeat. 4 hostiles, 1 hostage. Open ground between him and the helicopter. No cover, no backup, no time. He stepped into the light. "Let him go." The men spun toward him, weapons raised. "Put your gun down, Mr. Cole." The one holding Ethan pressed a pistol against the boy's head. "Or I paint the tarmac with his brains. You kill him, you lose your leverage. And then I kill all 4 of you. You're good. I've seen your file. But you're not that good. Try me." Ethan's eyes found Jackson. Terror, hope, trust that should have been impossible after everything he'd been through. "Jack, it's okay, buddy. I'm here. I'm going to get you out of this." Touching. The gunman tightened his grip on Ethan. "But we're leaving now. You can follow us, try to play hero and watch this child die. Or you can back off, let us go, and maybe we'll release him somewhere you can find him." "We both know that's not true. The moment you get in that helicopter, he's dead." Then we seem to have reached an impasse. Jackson's mind was racing. 4 targets, 1 in close contact with the hostage, 3 at varying distances. He could take out 2, maybe 3 before they killed Ethan. Not good enough. He needed a distraction. As if reading his thoughts, a shape exploded from the shadows behind the helicopter. Titan. The dog had dragged himself across the base, bleeding in agony but still fighting, still protecting the boy he loved. He hit the nearest gunman from behind, 70 pounds of fury and teeth. The man screamed, went down, weapon flying. Jackson moved. 2 shots, 2 bodies dropping. The gunman holding Ethan panicked, finger tightening on the trigger. Jackson was faster. His shot took the man through the eye. Clean. Instant. The pistol fell from nerveless fingers. Ethan dropped to the ground unharmed. The 4th gunman raised his weapon, aimed at Jackson. Titan launched himself again, jaws closing around the man's gun arm. The shot went wide. Jackson closed the distance, drove his elbow into the man's throat, felt cartilage give way. The gunman collapsed. Silence. Jackson stood in the center of the helipad, surrounded by bodies, chest heaving, adrenaline coursing through his veins. And then a small body crashed into his legs. "Jack! Jack!" Ethan was crying, trembling, clinging to him like a lifeline in a storm. Jackson dropped to his knees and pulled the boy into his arms. "I've got you. I've got you. You're safe now. They hurt Mama. They shot Titan. I thought... It's over. It's over. You're safe." He held the boy, felt the small heart hammering against his chest, and realized he was crying too. For the first time in 15 years, Jackson Cole let himself cry. Titan limped over, pressed against them both. The 3 of them stayed like that in the darkness, surrounded by death, but alive. Together. Safe. Walsh arrived with reinforcements 23 minutes later. She found Jackson still holding Ethan Titan, lying beside them, a field medic, working on the dog's wound. Denise had regained consciousness and was sitting on the tarmac, wrapped in a shock blanket, watching her son with tears streaming down her face. "Cole." Walsh approached slowly, like she was approaching a wounded animal. "Is it over?" "It's over." "The network. Dead or captured. All of them." Jackson looked up. "The people who did this. The ones who hurt children. They're finished." "How did you know? How did you get here in time?" I didn't know. I just... He looked at Titan, at the dog who had dragged himself across a military base with a bullet wound to protect a child. I had help. Walsh crouched down beside them. The governor wants to give you a medal. The FBI wants to offer you a job. The president wants to thank you personally. I don't want any of that. What do you want? Jackson looked at Ethan, who had fallen asleep in his arms, exhausted beyond measure, but finally at peace. I just want to take this boy home. Walsh was quiet for a long moment. I think that can be arranged. The hospital was different this time. Not the military facility at Andrews, a real hospital. Pine Ridge General, where it had all started. Where Jackson had first carried a dying boy through a blizzard. Where everything had changed. Titan was in surgery, the base veterinarian having stabilized him enough for transport. The bullet had done more damage than they'd initially thought, but the dog was fighting. He always fought. Denise sat beside Jackson in the waiting room, Ethan asleep in the chair between them. He hasn't let go of you all night, she said softly. Even unconscious, his hand keeps reaching for yours. Jackson looked at the boy's small fingers wrapped around his own. I almost didn't make it. A few minutes later but you did make it. That's what matters. Denise's hand found his other arm. You've saved him 3 times now. How many more times before you realize you're meant to be part of his life? I'm a soldier, a killer. I've done things. You're a protector, a guardian. You've given everything you have to keep my son alive. She turned his face toward hers. Jackson, stop running from what's right in front of you. He looked at her, at the strength that had carried her through months of abuse and fear, at the love that radiated from her eyes when she looked at her son, at the hope that somehow impossibly still lived in her heart. I don't know how to be a father. Neither did Michael. Neither does any man at first. But you learn. You grow. You let them teach you. She smiled through tears. Ethan already loves you. And I could love you too. If you let me. Jackson didn't know what to say. So he did something he hadn't done in 15 years. He let himself hope. The surgery lasted 4 hours. When Dr. Martinez finally emerged, Jackson was the first on his feet. He's going to be okay. The vet smiled, exhausted but genuine. The bullet nicked an artery, but we repaired it. He'll need time to heal, but German Shepherds are tough. This one especially. Can I see him? He's still under anesthesia, but yes, he's been whining for you even in his sleep. Jackson found Titan in the recovery room, lying on a surgical bed, IV lines running into his leg, bandages wrapped around his torso. The moment Jackson touched his fur, the dog's tail moved. Just once, a small wag that said everything. You crazy, stubborn, magnificent dog, Jackson's voice broke. You almost died for that kid. Titan's eyes opened. Amber, warm, full of love. Yeah. I know. You'd do it again. You'd do it 100 times. Jackson pressed his forehead against Titan's. I love you, boy. I don't say it enough. But I love you. Titan licked his face, and in that moment, Jackson Cole understood something he'd been running from his entire life. Love wasn't weakness. Love was the reason to be strong. The sun was rising when Ethan woke up. He found Jackson beside his bed, Titan lying on a blanket on the floor, and his mother asleep in a chair by the window. Jack. Hey, buddy. How are you feeling? Tired. Ethan rubbed his eyes. Is Titan okay? He's going to be fine. He's tough like you. Ethan looked at the dog, at the bandages, at the peaceful rise and fall of his breathing. He saved me. Again. He loves you. He'd do anything for you. Like you. Ethan's eyes found Jackson's. You came for me. You always come for me. Always, no matter what. The boy was quiet for a moment. Then softly, "Jack, can I ask you something? Anything." "My dad is dead. Uncle Ray told me that a long time ago. He said it was because my dad tried to be a hero." Ethan's voice trembled. "But you're a hero too. And you keep fighting. You keep surviving. Why?" Jackson thought about the question, about all the men he'd lost, about all the battles he'd survived, about the boy who had asked a question that generals and philosophers couldn't answer. Because some things are worth dying for, buddy, but the really important things are worth living for. He took Ethan's hand. "You're worth living for. Your mom is worth living for. Titan is worth living for. That's why I keep fighting. Not because I'm brave, but because I have something to come home to." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Will you stay with us forever?" Jackson looked at this broken, brave, impossible child, and he made a promise he intended to keep for the rest of his life. Forever. Ethan threw his arms around Jackson's neck. And Jackson Cole, Navy SEAL warrior survivor, finally came home. 6 months changed everything. Jackson stood at the kitchen window of the small house they'd rented on the edge of Pine Ridge, watching Ethan throw a ball for Titan in the backyard. The German Shepherd's brown, gold, and black coat rippled as he bounded across the grass, still favoring his left side slightly where the bullet had grazed him, but moving with the joy of a dog who had found his purpose. And Ethan. God, Ethan. The boy was different now. Taller, stronger. The haunted look that had lived in his eyes for so long was fading, replaced by something Jackson hadn't seen before. Hope. Coffee. Denise appeared beside him, holding 2 steaming mugs. She'd changed too. The fear that had carved lines into her face was smoothing away. Her hair was longer. Her smile came easier. "Thanks." Jackson took the mug, felt her warmth beside him. "He's getting good at throwing. He practices every day. Says he wants Titan to stay in shape for—" She hesitated. "For what?" "For protecting people. He told me last night that when he grows up he wants to be a K-9 officer. Like Marcus. Like you were." Something twisted in Jackson's chest. Pride. Fear. Love. He's 7. He's old enough to know what he wants. And what he wants is to help people the way you helped him. Jackson watched the boy and the dog sunlight catching their movements, laughter floating through the open window. "I never thought I'd have this." "Have what?" "A family. A home. Something worth protecting that isn't a military objective or a classified mission." He turned to face her. "I spent 15 years learning how to kill. I never learned how to live." Denise set down her coffee, took his face in her hands. "You're learning now. Every day. Every time you read him a bedtime story. Every time you help him with homework. Every time you're there when he wakes up from a nightmare." Her eyes held his. "You're not a killer, Jackson Cole. You're a father. That's what he calls you, you know, when he talks to his friends at school." "He does. He does." She kissed him softly. "Now stop brooding and go play with your son. The paperwork can wait." Jackson looked at the folder on the kitchen table. Adoption papers. Walsh had pushed them through called-in favors, cut through red tape that would have taken years to navigate normally. By the end of the month, Ethan Cole would legally be Ethan Cole Jackson. His son. The word still felt foreign, sacred, terrifying. "Go." Denise pushed him gently toward the door. "He's been waiting for you all morning." Jackson went. The ball flew through the air. Titan caught it, brought it back, dropped it at Jackson's feet with a triumphant wag of his tail. "Good boy." Jackson scratched behind the dog's ears. "Best retriever in Montana." "He's not a retriever, Dad." Ethan laughed. "He's a German Shepherd." "Dad." The word hit Jackson like it did every time. A punch to the chest. A reminder of what he'd found. German Shepherds can retrieve too. This one retrieves everything. Tennis balls, shoes, my socks. Your socks are gross. Your opinion has been noted and filed appropriately. Ethan giggled, threw the ball again. Titan bounded after it. Dad, yeah, buddy. Can we invite Miss Claire to dinner and Helen and Agent Walsh? Jackson looked at his son. Any particular reason? It's been 6 months. Since everything. I want to say thank you to everyone who helped me. Ethan's voice went quiet. I never got to say it properly. I was too sick. Too scared. You said it, Ethan. Every time you survived. Every time you kept fighting. That was thank you enough. But I want to say the words. I want them to know that I remember, that I won't forget. The boy's eyes found Jackson's. Is that okay? Jackson knelt down, pulled Ethan into a hug. That's more than okay, buddy. That's exactly what a brave person does. The dinner happened 3 weeks later. Claire Dawson came with a homemade pie and tears in her eyes. Helen Graves brought flowers and a card signed by the entire staff of Pine Ridge Elementary. Agent Walsh arrived in civilian clothes for the first time since Jackson had met her looking almost human without her FBI badge and tactical demeanor. And Tommy Reed came with news. Victor Mendez died in prison yesterday. The table went silent. Jackson's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. How? Officially heart attack. Unofficially. Tommy shrugged. Let's just say the Mendez cartel has a lot of enemies even inside federal prison. Someone decided he'd been breathing too long. Good. Claire's voice was hard. After what he did to those children, he deserved worse. Claire. Helen put a gentle hand on her arm. I'm not sorry. I listened to 17 children describe what that monster did to them. I heard their voices. Their fear, their pain. Claire looked at Ethan. He was the worst of them and now he's gone. I call that justice. Ethan was quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. Are you okay, buddy? Jackson asked. I don't know how to feel. Ethan's voice was small but steady. I'm glad he can't hurt anyone else. But I don't feel happy that he's dead. Is that wrong? Walsh leaned forward. That's not wrong, Ethan. That's called being human. Good people don't celebrate death, even the death of bad people. They feel relieved. They feel safe. But they don't feel happy. What do you feel? Walsh considered the question. I feel like my job is a little easier now. I feel like the world is a little safer. And I feel like you, Ethan Cole, are the bravest person I've ever had the privilege to work with. Ethan blushed. I'm not brave. I was scared the whole time. That's what brave is. Jackson's voice was soft. Remember. The boy nodded, reached under the table to touch Titan, who was lying at his feet, ever watchful, ever loyal. Can I say something? Ethan stood up, pushing back his chair. I practiced it. Mom helped me write it down. Of course, sweetheart. Denise smiled encouragingly. Ethan pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, unfolded it with shaking hands. 6 months ago, I was dying in a bathroom. I had poison in my belly. I thought no one would come. I thought no one cared. He looked around the table. But you came. All of you. Miss Claire stayed on the phone with me, even when I was crying so hard I couldn't talk. Miss Helen held my hand and promised I'd be okay. Titan found me in the storm and wouldn't leave me alone. Dad carried me through a blizzard and fought bad guys to keep me safe. Agent Walsh and all the FBI people caught the monsters who hurt me. His voice cracked, but he kept going. I was 7 years old, and I learned something that I'll never forget. When you're in trouble, when you're scared, when you think no one can help, someone always comes. Maybe it's a stranger. Maybe it's a dog. Maybe it's someone who just hears your voice and decides you're worth saving. Tears were streaming down Claire's face. Helen was sobbing quietly. Even Walsh's eyes were suspiciously bright. "I'm 8 now. I'm bigger and stronger, and I don't have nightmares every night anymore. And when I grow up, I want to be the person who comes. I want to save kids like me. I want to make sure no one ever feels as alone as I felt before Miss Claire answered my call." He put down the paper and looked at each of them in turn. "Thank you. For coming. For fighting. For not giving up on me. I'll never forget it. And I promise someday I'm going to make you proud." He sat down. Silence held the room for a long moment. Then Claire stood up, walked around the table, and pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. "You already make us proud," she whispered. "Every single day." One by one they came to him. Helen, Walsh, Tommy, each one holding the boy who had survived the unsurvivable, who had found the words they couldn't, who had reminded them why they did what they did. Jackson watched from his seat, heart so full it hurt. This was family, not blood, not obligation, choice. The people you chose to love, the people who chose to love you back. The medal ceremony came 2 months later. The governor of Montana himself placed the ribbon around Ethan's neck. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. The whole state watched as a small boy with a German Shepherd at his side received the Montana Medal of Courage, the youngest person in history to earn the honor. But Ethan didn't seem to notice the cameras or the crowds. He was looking at the front row where his family sat. His mother healthy now, tears streaming down her face. Jackson in a suit he'd borrowed from Tommy because he'd never owned one, fighting to keep his expression steady. Helen and Claire sitting side by side holding hands. Walsh in full FBI dress uniform looking proud and fierce and unexpectedly maternal. And Titan wearing a small medal of his own. The department had created a special commendation for the dog that wouldn't give up. When it was time for Ethan to speak, he walked to the podium on legs that barely trembled anymore. "6 months ago I called 911 because something was moving in my belly. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was scared and alone and dying." He paused, looking out at the crowd. "But I wasn't alone. I was never alone. Because somewhere out there, people were listening. A dispatcher named Claire, a nurse named Helen, a Navy SEAL named Jackson, and a dog named Titan who found me in the dark and refused to let me go." The audience was silent. Completely, utterly silent. I used to think that being brave meant not being scared. But I was scared the whole time. I'm still scared sometimes. The difference is, now I know that being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. He looked directly at the camera. "If you're in trouble right now, if someone is hurting you, if you feel like no one cares, I need you to know something." His voice strengthened. "You matter. Your life matters. And there are people who will come for you if you just reach out. Call 911. Tell a teacher. Tell anyone. Don't stay silent like I did for so long. Speak up. Fight back. Survive." He took a shaky breath. "Because on the other side of the storm, there's light. I promise. I'm living proof." The applause started slow and built into something thunderous. But Ethan didn't hear it. He was looking at his family. At Jackson, who was crying openly now, no longer hiding. At his mother, who was laughing and sobbing at the same time. At Titan, who had stood up and was watching him with those amber eyes that held a love beyond words. He was looking at the life he'd never thought he'd have. And for the first time in as long as he could remember, Ethan Cole felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Home. The adoption was finalized on a Tuesday. Jackson Cole and Denise Cole stood before a judge in the Pine Ridge courthouse with Ethan between them and made it official. "By the power vested in me by the state of Montana, I hereby declare that Ethan Michael Cole is now legally the son of Jackson Cole and Denise Cole. May this family find the peace, love, and happiness they so richly deserve." The gavel came down. Ethan looked up at Jackson with eyes that held no more shadows. "Is it real now?" "It's real. You're stuck with me forever. Forever is a long time. I know. You ready for that? Ethan grinned, the full, bright, unguarded smile of a child who had finally found safety. I've been ready my whole life. Jackson lifted him up, held him tight. Welcome home, son. I was always home, Dad. I was just waiting for you to find me. Life settled into something Jackson had never experienced before. Normal. Breakfast at 7 a.m. Ethan off to school at 8. Jackson working part-time with the county sheriff's department as a K-9 training consultant. Titan accompanying him everywhere, the dog's legend growing with each passing month. Denise went back to work at the library, the same library where Sophie she wasn't in this story. The library where the woman who ran the children's section told her that Ethan's story had inspired more kids to speak up about abuse in the past 6 months than in the previous 5 years combined. They had dinner together every night. Homework, stories, prayers, and slowly the nightmares stopped. Not all at once, not completely, but the screaming in the darkness became less frequent. The terror that had lived in Ethan's eyes faded further and further away. Until one morning, Jackson woke up and realized something extraordinary. He was happy. Not the temporary happiness of a mission completed or a battle won. Not the fleeting happiness of alcohol or adrenaline. Real happiness. The kind that came from waking up with purpose. From watching a boy grow. From loving and being loved in return. He lay in bed, Denise's head on his shoulder, Titan at his feet, and listened to Ethan moving around in his room. Getting ready for school. Talking to himself the way kids do when they think no one is listening. Come on, Titan. Dad says we're going to the park after school. You can chase squirrels. But don't catch them, okay? They're just trying to live their lives like us. The dog's tail thumped against the floor. I love you, boy. You're my best friend. After Dad, and Mom, and Miss Claire, and Miss Helen, and Agent Walsh. Okay, you're one of my best friends. Is that okay? A bark. Agreement. Good. Let's go get breakfast. I think Dad's making pancakes. Footsteps. A door opening. Dad, are you making pancakes? Jackson smiled. Yeah, buddy. I'm making pancakes. The ones with the chocolate chips. Is there any other kind? No, there isn't. Chocolate chip pancakes are the only real pancakes. Everything else is just pretending. Jackson laughed. This was what he'd been fighting for his entire life without knowing it. This small, perfect, ordinary moment, with a boy who had survived hell and come out the other side believing in pancakes and squirrels and best friends. Come on, son, let's make breakfast. The first anniversary of Ethan's rescue fell on a cold February morning. Jackson drove out to the same mountain road where it had all begun, where a blizzard had buried Pine Ridge under 3 feet of snow, where a boy's desperate phone call had set everything in motion. Titan sat in the passenger seat, gray now around his muzzle, but still alert, still watchful. You remember this place, boy? Titan's ears perked forward. A low whine escaped his throat. Yeah, I remember too. Jackson parked at the overlook, got out, stood at the edge of the mountain, looking down at the valley where Pine Ridge Elementary sat, looking so small from up here. 1 year ago, I was nobody. A broken soldier living in a cabin with a dog. No purpose, no future, just waiting to die. He put his hand on Titan's head. And then you heard him. A boy crying in a bathroom. A voice on a radio that most people would have ignored. But not you. You knew. You always know. Titan pressed against his leg. I followed you into that storm because I trusted you. Because after 8 years, you'd never led me wrong. But I had no idea what I was walking into. I had no idea that saving one child would save me. He was quiet for a long moment. Thank you, boy. For hearing what I couldn't hear. For finding what I couldn't find. For loving me when I'd forgotten how to love myself. Titan looked up at him. Those amber eyes deep with understanding and devotion. Jackson knelt down, wrapped his arms around the dog. "We did good, partner. We did real good." Titan licked his face. And in that moment on that mountain, 1 year after everything changed, Jackson Cole understood the truth he'd been running from his entire life. He wasn't broken. He had never been broken. He had just been waiting for a storm, waiting for a boy, waiting for a dog to lead him home. The party that night was small but perfect. Claire brought another pie. Helen brought Ethan a book about canine heroes throughout history. Walsh brought news that the last of the Mendez cartel operatives had been sentenced, the network finally and completely destroyed. And Tommy brought something else. "Got a phone call this morning." He was trying to keep his face neutral, but his eyes were dancing. "From the governor's office." "Again?" Ethan groaned. "I don't want another medal. They're heavy." "Not a medal. An invitation." Tommy pulled an envelope from his jacket. "The governor is hosting a summit on child trafficking next month. He wants Ethan to speak." "Me?" Ethan's eyes went wide. "Why me?" "Because you're a famous kid. Your story has been shared millions of times. Kids across the country are coming forward because of you. Parents are learning the warning signs because of you. Laws are being changed because of you." "But I'm just..." "Just what?" Jackson put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Just a boy who survived the unsurvivable. Just a kid who found the courage to call for help when most adults would have stayed silent. Just the reason 17 other children are free right now." "Dad." "You're not just anything, Ethan. You never were." Ethan looked at his mother, at his father, at the dog who had found him in the darkness and refused to let go. "Can I say yes?" "You can say whatever you want, buddy. It's your story." Ethan took the envelope, opened it, read the invitation with eyes that had seen too much and survived anyway. "Okay, I'll do it." He looked up, "But only if Titan can come too." Walsh smiled. "I think that can be arranged." "And Dad?" "Yeah. Will you stand next to me in case I get scared?" Jackson's eyes burned. "Always, son. Always." The summit was held in Helena, the state capital. Ethan stood at the podium, Titan at his side, Jackson just behind him. The audience was filled with lawmakers, child welfare advocates, law enforcement officials, and dozens of families whose children had been rescued because of the Mendez investigation. "My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 8 years old, and 1 year ago I swallowed 23 capsules of poison because a man I was supposed to trust told me he would kill my mother if I didn't." The room was silent. "For months before that I was scared every day. I couldn't tell anyone. I thought no one would believe me. I thought I was alone." He paused, looked at Titan. "But I wasn't alone, and neither are you." He turned back to the audience. "If there's a kid watching this right now who's being hurt, if there's a parent who suspects something is wrong but doesn't want to believe it, if there's a teacher or a neighbor or a friend who sees the signs but doesn't know what to do," his voice strengthened. "Do something. Say something. Be someone's Claire. Be someone's Helen. Be someone's Jackson. Be someone's Titan." He reached down, touched the dog's head. "It only takes one person to change a life. One phone call. One act of courage. One choice to show up when everyone else looks away." His eyes found Jackson's. "I'm alive because strangers became family. Because a dispatcher stayed on the line. Because a nurse refused to give up. Because a Navy SEAL walked into a blizzard for a kid he'd never met. Because a dog heard a cry that no one else could hear." He squared his shoulders. "I can't repay that debt. No one can. But I can pay it forward. I can tell my story so that other kids know they're not alone. I can stand here and say the words that I wish someone had said to me when I was drowning." He took a breath. "You matter. Your voice matters. Your life matters. And no matter what they tell you, no matter how scared you are, no matter how alone you feel, someone is listening. Someone is coming." Someone will fight for you. He looked directly into the camera. You just have to reach out. You just have to ask. You just have to believe that your voice deserves to be heard. A final pause. Because it does. The applause was deafening. But Ethan didn't hear it. He was looking at his father, at the man who had found him in the storm and never let go. Jackson smiled through tears. Proud of you, son. I learned from the best dad. That night on the drive home, Ethan fell asleep in the back seat. Titan lay beside him, head resting on the boy's lap, protecting him, even in dreams. Denise reached over, took Jackson's hand. You did it. You saved him. We all saved him. No, you did. That first night in the blizzard, when no one else could get through. You heard his call, and you answered. That's where it started. Jackson was quiet for a long moment. You know what I thought when I was carrying him through that storm? What? I thought, this is it. This is why I survived. All those years. All those missions. All those friends I lost, and battles I won, and nightmares I couldn't escape. It was all leading to this moment, to this child. He looked in the rearview mirror at his sleeping son. And I was right. Everything I went through made me strong enough to save him, and saving him made me strong enough to finally live. Denise squeezed his hand. You're not just his hero, you know. You're mine too. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who finally found his purpose. That's what heroes are, Jackson. People who find their purpose and refuse to let go. She leaned her head against his shoulder. And Jackson Cole, Navy SEAL warrior survivor father, drove his family home through the Montana night. Behind them, the sun was setting. Ahead of them, the road stretched out like a promise. And in the back seat, a boy and his dog slept peacefully safe in the knowledge that someone would always come for them. Someone would always fight. Someone would always listen. Because in the end, that's what love meant. Not the absence of storms, but the presence of someone willing to walk through them with you. Years later, people would ask Jackson Cole about that February morning. The blizzard, the phone call, the boy with poison in his belly. And he would always say the same thing. I didn't save Ethan. He saved me. I was lost in a storm of my own, and his voice called me home. Titan would be there, old and gray, but still watchful. Ethan would be there, grown tall and strong, working with the FBI's Child Protection Division. Denise would be there, her hair silver, now her smile unchanged. And when people asked what it meant, what lesson they should take from the story, Jackson would put his hand on his son's shoulder and say the words that had become their family's creed. When someone cries for help, answer. When someone needs you, go. When the storm gets dark and the road gets long and you think no one can hear you. He would smile. Bark louder. Someone is always listening. Because in the end, the storm didn't break them. It revealed them. It showed them that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear win. It taught them that family isn't just blood, but the people who show up when everything falls apart. And it proved that no matter how dark the night, no matter how fierce the blizzard, there is always someone listening, always someone coming, always a way home. The end. On a warm summer evening on the porch of a small house at the edge of Pine Ridge, a boy sits with his father and their dog. The sun is setting. The world is quiet. And somewhere in the distance a phone rings. Someone is calling for help. And someone is already answering. Because that's what heroes do. That's what family does. That's what love does. It listens. It comes. It never gives up. Never. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear that they matter. Subscribe for more stories that remind us of second chances, courage, and the unbreakable bonds that save us when we need it most. And remember, no matter what storm you're facing right now, help is closer than you think. You just have to reach out. You just have to ask. You just have to believe that your voice deserves to be heard, because it does.